Welcome back. Today we're going to do a portrait. So what you see me doing here is that I am starting it off with wet into wet, and I locate the eyes and also the ears. You'll be able to see that I'm doing a young person because the first or late color is a very rosy cheek, and I'm also spreading it all over the face. So I continue on marking the face, and I'm also starting to do the shadow for the hair. And I'm doing this with a mixture of yellow ochre, lemon yellow, and a koi watercolor palette that I've been using lately. For the shadows, I'm using a tone of blue, also a bit of reddish tone, and I basically just create a mud and just spread it all across the face of whatever I feel that there should be a shadow. I know it's kind of confusing because I start the painting backwards, where I just focus more on the shadow and then I later on do the eyes, which looks kind of funny once it has a little bit more of the shadowing. But I just feel like for me, this is the easiest way. Remember that I'm not doing this with a pencil, but just going in with the paintbrush instead. Immediately that I have already the eye socket basically just drawn in or at least position, I went in and started doing the eyes, the eyeball or the iris, and I painted the color that I wanted right away. I'm also playing here with the hair. For that, I'm using yellow ochre, bit of sepia, and I'm just marking here the chin and part of the area that I see that has more of the shadow. So you're gonna see me creating here back and forth that line because I'm doing her just a tad bit more older than the actual picture, and I'm also now locating the shadow of the nose or the tip of the nose, just creating here and there. I'm also doing the shadow for the eyebrows, and when I mention shadow, is basically where the hairs are and not particularly the detail of the hairs. I'm also doing the nostrils, and underneath the nose I'm adding a tint of blue. I continue developing the painting, adding more and more of the pinkish color. I'm sorry, this audio is not as great because I completely forget that I am using my phone and I've been holding it the wrong way. So you probably see my voice going back and forth. But the more I make videos, the more I learn how to edit and also how to voice over these videos. So I truly apologize. For now, I'm using my Samsung and it's not the greatest quality, but you know, it's doing its job. So I started marking now part of the shadow of the eye, and I'm also going to lower and layer part of the chin. There is a part of a area that it was her now on the screen is the right side that I wanted to pronounce a little bit more just to make it a little bit more fatty and more cheeky. So I took the liberty of also doing that a little bit more exaggerated. I also did the same thing with the eye sockets. It seems I'm portraying her just a tad bit more older. I'm also exaggerating the eye shape in this case. You can do this with, I guess, younger. The reason that I do this is because I just wanted to take my artistic license and not do the same exact picture that I saw, since it's not of a particular person, just for the fun of it and at the same time just to paint, just to sketch and just to do something artistic and just to feel good also, because it has given me and bringing me so much joy that I'm able to share with you guys some of the things that I'm able to do. So this girl is actually smiling, and I want to also portray her happiness. So that's what you see me doing on the bottom part. I'm actually just making sure that that smile is wide and you can tell she's happy. And so I focus a lot on that line. At the same time, I went with what I saw. I know it's tad difficult to understand that inside your mouth you really don't have a black color, but is it different? You also have tissue in there, and so you probably have purplish, you have bluish, you have all kinds of undertones inside your mouth. So that's what we actually portray when we're doing a portrait. The same thing goes for the lips. There's always shadow underneath of the lip, and it's always more pale on the top. So all those things come into consideration when you're actually painting. And so that's what you're trying to grasp. And of course, sometimes you take your artistic license to do as you wish with perhaps a portrait that you're just creating just cause. But in this case, I really wanted to portray those little details that perhaps I feel like it just makes a painting when you do the things right, perhaps. I'm trying also not to go too much into detail. So basically, just adding the shadows and the forms and shapes and things that I see that could help the painting develop a little better. The inner corner of the eye, as well as the tip of the nose or the bridge of the nose, was very important to me since it's something that, especially in pictures that are online or whatever, you can find them. You really don't see that shadow. You don't see the light where it's coming from. It's very rare that they do these portraits thinking, oh, an artist is going to actually paint it. This is perhaps for references for X or Y, Z or whatever, but in my case, I really had to portray in the picture where the shadow was coming from. So I did the what you call your right side a little bit darker so I can have a little bit of contrast and you can see a little bit more shadow. I am so sorry. Here, some of these things I cannot edit. My dear loving husband bring me a snack, and I don't know. He's just in the camera, and I hope you guys. He was just messing with me, and he was going around, but he means well. He's a sweetheart, and he's also drinking my drink, as you could see. And then he went off to the bedroom, and it just took off. And I was snacking on the donut and literally forgot that I was actually painting. Anyways, anywho, these things I will try my best to get a better equipment so I can edit these things, because it is just so unprofessional. But it is actually me and it's life, and that's what I do when I'm painting. I get my snacks from my husband, and also I right now before we end up talking about other things besides food, I'm actually now just I wanted to make sure that I grasp the head width, because he's a child. So I really wanted to portray that shadow, the contrast that the skin was hitting on the left side, my right side, and your right side of what you see on the screen right now at the moment. So I added more shadow to it. At the beginning, I was a little bit hesitant because I just felt like the eyes were really bright, and really I couldn't really grasp part of the light, and picture wise it wasn't like the greatest picture, so it was giving me a bit of hard time, especially in the eyes. Like I really wanted to grasp a little bit more light in them, and I couldn't because it was a picture, but I did what I could. Overall, I feel that the best way to actually grasp a person's liking is by having a model, or perhaps a family member, or someone that wants to stay and sit down for at least 20 minutes, so you can not only pick up speed but also be able to sketch, and you'll be able to see all the undertones that the skin has. I feel like it's the only way. There's no comparison by seeing a person down in front of a window where you can see all the bright light and all the beautiful undertones that that skin tone has. It's not the same thing as if you were actually painting from life. But however, the portrait just does gives you a advantage that you can have that picture, and out of the picture you can get a bunch of different portraits if you like, because you have that as an example. Now what you can see here is that I'm also doing the hair. That part that you just see me going there, I had to, I took it off, but you can see that what I'm doing right now, which is, I think is a little bit more difficult for some, is the hair. Hair the same way, everything goes with shadow and the form and the shape of where the hair is going, and exactly the darkest part, that's what you're portraying with the watercolor. If you were to do every single strand of hair, you might get lost. You have to locate the light as well as the dark from from any hairstyle that the person might have. So that's what you see here, not necessarily doing or constructing the entire head of hair, but just the shadow and form and light as well. Now I'm adding a little bit more a shadow on the eyes, and you see these are not the eyelashes. This is just the shadow, form and shape of the eye, how the eyelid is actually fallen and into the eye socket and how it does it close. And you have to do this with every single person that you might want to portray because it's so important. This is the characteristics of this person. This is what makes them them. So you have to look for those details. And even though we're not really doing the exact picture, we're just practicing and doing this for fun. You still want to go with, with what you see, and that also will help you when you're developing or when you're doing an actual portrait of someone. Right now, I'm adding a pink rose or rosy cheeks, and I'm having a mixture of bluish as well that you are not able to see with the camera, but I'm adding that in it. This allows me to give really nice enriched shadows to the artwork. I know it is difficult to see, but in any painting, especially with watercolors, the reason why I'm not continuing with the eyes and I'm not dealing with the eyes at the moment is because that area is pretty wet. So what I do is that I go all over the painting, all over the parts where it's actually dry, and I just start painting. That will allow me and also saves me some time. As I continue to develop the painting, I'm actually doing it right on the bridge, doing more shadow because I felt like you need it. I'm also adding, I'm not sure how you call that, but I'm doing that area where the eye socket is laying or resting. I'm doing it a little bit more, I'm adding more shadow to it. Right now it's a pinkish tone, and I actually added a little bit more bluish tone later on. Since I think I went just a tad bit overboard with the shadowing and the marking here and there, I actually had to scrub away a little bit, and that's okay, that's allowed. You can do that. So that part of the hair, I had to also scrub later on, but for now you can tell and you can see how I do the hair. And also some parts where the face is, I actually took a more stiffer brush and took off part of the pigment that I put in there. I'm not, I will have left it without no background, but I just wanted to, for it to look more complete. So I added a very light green to the work, and I dab it a little bit. I didn't want it to do it too harsh either. So you see me here taking off part of some of the pigmentation or pigments that I left there, or paint that I left there. I'm just scrubbing a little bit off because I wanted to take some off because I felt like I went overboard with them. So sometimes people don't like to use watercolors because it seems like it's difficult and you're not able to fix your mistakes. But as you can see me here, I'm clearly doing that right at the spot. I'm actually just taking off and removing part of the pigment that I left or pour into the paper. The way you do this is by wetting the brush or a little stiffer brush, and very softly you can lift up the paint. You're not scrubbing too hard because that can damage the paper, but it's actually really is very resourceful for portraits and also for flower painting. And I think it's one of my favorite things to do. You can actually pour one into wet and scrub or take off just like I'm doing there, and you can do beautiful things that way. So it's actually very useful when you're doing watercolors, just not too rough because you might damage your painting. So as we're basically just finishing up the different touches, the last thing that I did was the actual hair. I'm just adding more shadow into the hair, and I hope that you guys like it. Hopefully can bring you more of this. It's really bringing me a lot of joy, and I just hope that you guys enjoy it. My goal is to, of course, bring more videos, but more, I want to improve my recordings. Thank you again for watching. See you next time.